Welcome to HDTV. You're now rocking with your boy. Our long season rift between Patrick Mahomes and Eric Bieniemy ruined the AFC Championship. The game of football is played with the highest level of passion possible and energy most simply don't understand. But realize this. What occurred on the Chiefs sideline and in the locker room during the AFC Championship wasn't a brief spat or a heat-of-the-moment flare-up. It was instead the culmination of several issues that all came to a head at the worst time possible. We ask that you put away your preconceived notions about national reporters caring about Kansas City. This story will not be reported on because of the optics involved. Most of you reading this understands where the Chiefs Kingdom editorial board comes from. The Twitter handler of @1_Chiefs Kingdom, originally known as Save Our Chiefs. That account is run by a few people, but the owner is someone who has covered the team in the background since 1997. First on KFFL.com, then NFLScoop.com, and eventually the DraftSharks.com. The Save Our Cheese movement, the single greatest fan revolt in sports fandom history, rekindled the owner's connection to those in the NFL circles. Chiefs employees fed us info, gave us insight to the hiring of Andy Reid, and much, much more. Since we have taken a step back, only reporting sporadically, we don't have a podcast, a website needing clicks, or a need to generate profit. We simply share what we know for the enjoyment of Chiefs Kingdom. We get asked about our sources. Let me tell you how they come about. The NFL is a multi-billion-dollar industry. They control 100% of the narrative. Nothing is left to chance except the police blotter. Even then, they can control the longevity of something in the media. But when it comes to the team level, people will talk, and in the case of the Chiefs' most recent playoff loss, they are based upon information provided directly to us. There is a narrative being pushed not only by the Chiefs, but at least two high-profile players. There's nothing wrong with that. This is how the off-the-field game is played in the NFL. Ted Cruz, Executive Vice President of Communications for the Chiefs, is the main handler of information, both public and private, and does a masterful job of controlling information released to local reporters and national insiders. So when things like Andy Reid meeting with Eric Bieniemy come out, it's because the team or agents, or sometimes both, wanted the news out. Sub-tier employees of the Chiefs also have access to this information. There are several people at one Arrowhead Drive who want a certain narrative pushed out so a different one can be ignored. The Chiefs are wary of the optics of separating from Eric Bieniemy. Technically, they already have, as Bieniemy has no contract with the club and is a free agent. Given the Brian Flores lawsuit and perceptions of racist behavior towards Bieniemy, the Chiefs simply don't want to be in the crosshairs of the same controversy right now. There is no racism involved with Bieniemy not getting a head coaching job. That's BS. What this article is saying, when you interview for a role 15 times and come away empty-handed, it's time to look at the man in the mirror. Bieniemy has rushed his interviews, been incomplete in thought and structure, and has lacked a true plan that a billionaire owner can get behind. No, Eric Bieniemy that's BS. I'm gonna tell you guys why. I'm just reading this BS article. The back channel communication of Bieniemy is simply not good, and it has zero to do with race. That's a lie. Case in point, the NFL begged and pleaded with the Saints ownership group to strongly consider Bieniemy. In the end, the team felt Dennis Allen's plan to the continuity was more important than Bieniemy's ideas and the NFL's pleading. So what now? Bieniemy is a free agent. He will meet with the Chiefs and talk through options. They have held initial talks with another round coming soon. Considering what has happened, what and what you're about to read, it all boils down to the understanding is travel back in time to Super Bowl LV. The Chiefs were fresh off a 31-9 thumping due to their Dollar General style duct tape offensive line. Mahomes ran for 500 plus lateral yards, escaping rushers, and the Chiefs were exposed. Walking out of the stadium that night, Bieniemy's contract with the Chiefs had expired, which was a well-publicized story leading up to the Super Bowl. Bieniemy was passed over for head coaching opportunities. Whispers started to circulate about the deficiencies as a coach. Players, for the most part, remained silent. Between the Super Bowl and the draft, Bieniemy quietly signed a one-year deal for just over $1 million. The Chiefs did not release details. Kansas City News didn't really report on it. According to our source, when training camp arrived, Bieniemy was different. He didn't have the same energy he was previously known for. He was short and temperamental with a lot of people behind closed doors. Flashback to August 2020, Bieniemy made this statement about Patrick Mahomes. You guys have been around him, you know him, said Bieniemy. He's a competitive prick. Okay, he's a great kid, but he's a competitive prick. He wants to improve at everything he could possibly improve upon. He wants to be the best at whatever he can do, and along the way, he wants to make sure that he's leading the guys. He wants to be held accountable by his peers, but also, too, he just wants to work, and that's what you love about him, being around him every single day. There was nothing playful about this quote. According to our source, Bieniemy disliked the dynamics Mahomes brought to the offense because he felt it hurt his chances to become a head coach. His statement may have come across as a joke, but as with any joke told, there's always some truth hidden in the delivery. The 2020 season features some minor disagreements between Mahomes and Bieniemy that are at times just part of playing in NFL. It was nothing out of the ordinary. However, the situation began to head down a slippery slope as Super Bowl LV preparations went south. Bieniemy was interviewing for a head coaching job while the team was trying to navigate the game plan and offset their offensive line problems. Mahomes and Reid, according to our source, had a good plan in place. Bieniemy didn't like it. He made several changes, and he had the power to do so in his contract because he called the plays in 2020, as he did in 2021. 1 month after the Super Bowl loss, a decision was made to bring back Bieniemy on a quiet one-year deal, while hoping he would receive the head coaching opportunity he had worked for. Everyone was on board with the game plan, focused on the optics. It's easier to lose the coach publicly to promotion than having the potentially fire a high-profile coach. Optics matter a lot to these owners. Then the Chiefs started poorly in 2021. Mahomes struggled, eyebrows were raised, the national media dug in smelling blood. The reality of the situation, schemes were misaligned. Several defensive backs were not getting along with defensive back coach Sam Madison, and the Chiefs had lingering injuries. And then the biggest snowball of all starting rolling again, the hidden feud between Bieniemy and Mahomes. In week 3, during the midweek meeting between Bieniemy, QB coach Mike Kafka, and Mahomes, Bieniemy laid into his star quarterback for no reason. Both Kafka and Mahomes pushed back on Bieniemy. After this heated argument, which was not normal, Reid stepped in following the loss of the Bills. Kafka was quietly given a greater role in planning the Chiefs' passing game. Kafka is known for being creative offensively at Arrowhead. His innovations are often called the Mike Files. He came up with the Rose Bowl right, the play the Chiefs ran for a key first down in Super Bowl LIV. So at this point, Bieniemy's role was adjusted, but Reid continued to let him call plays. Once the Chiefs' opening script was exhausted, this was in Bieniemy's contract. The changes led to the Chiefs having a run of success. Then before the Chiefs-Raiders game in Las Vegas, Reid told production officials to avoid sideline shots of Bieniemy. Something again had happened in that week of prep leading up to the game. Nobody will go on record as to what other than to say something happened, but if you go back and rewatch the games this year, Bieniemy's camera time went down compared to years past. Since then, numerous fans who have attended games at Arrowhead and on the road have asked, what's with Bieniemy and Mahomes? They are beefing on the sideline. For anyone questioning Mahomes at this point, consider the following insight from a family member of a high-profile Chiefs player. Most of the guys tune Bieniemy out because he does the one thing good coaches don't do, ignores feedback from players. have heard from multiple Chiefs staff, including some who stand on the sidelines, that Reid, Mahomes, and Bieniemy have disagreed over game plans and strategy all year, as well as far back to late 2020. The same sources have indicated to us that the reason Bieniemy doesn't have a head coaching job is because of his temperament and unwillingness to accept feedback from his players. This came up with the Houston Texans and the New Orleans Saints. Broncos GM George Patton asked Bieniemy to point blank in his interview about a situation he saw while in Kansas City earlier this season. The answer from Bieniemy eliminated him from job contention. On the last play, tell me only at the time. Oh yeah. On the last play before halftime, 3 feet and nearly 2 years of frustration wiped out a chance to secure Kansas City's third straight Super Bowl berth. Poor communication, stubbornness, and lack of game control all came together at the worst possible time. Players have to execute the plays, but coaches also have a job to do. Bieniemy failed in this situation, and everyone in the NFL knows it. The timeline of the events: it was 9 seconds left. Second timeout, number 1 by Cincinnati at 9 seconds. Bieniemy tells Mahomes he has a timeout left, and they had 5 plays called lined up, 2 of which were runs that were never sent in. The first play failed. Bieniemy then told Mahomes he had 1 timeout left and to run play X or take a field goal. The narrative that Bieniemy only wanted a field goal is 100% false. Bieniemy called a play that resulted in a doomed pass to Hill, not Reid. Mahomes then tried to call timeout and the clock expired. Bieniemy called the entire game while Reid can chime in at any point and toss out a call. Bieniemy had full play calling authority via his contract. Bieniemy and Mahomes get into it at the halftime in the tunnel in the locker room. There was in the face yelling before Reid and other coaches stepped in. It happened again after the game. Any remaining confidence or trust in the relationship was broken at that point. Anyone who has played QB at a higher level will say the headset can't be chaotic. Usually only one coach has access, but this goes unchecked by the unfortunately those in-game moments where Mahomes is squeezing his helmet and receiving calls late is due to multiple voices on the hot mic. This happened multiple times in 2021, and during the AFC Championship, it was chaotic, particularly before the final snap prior to halftime. Nobody can say exactly when this happened, but at one point during the AFC Championship, the following exchange took place after Bieniemy called the play. No, run this. Bieniemy, what the F? We're blowing this game. Call the effing play or I will. A high-profile offensive lineman snapped and spoke at halftime. This player is usually quiet, so his words have resonated with several high-ranking members of the Chiefs brass the past 3 weeks. Bieniemy called the entire second half, calling multiple times for Clyde Edwards-Helaire to get the ball instead of Jerick McKinnon. Bieniemy called for Demarcus Robinson to get the ball in overtime over Mecole Hardman. Both passes fell incomplete. Bieniemy ignored feedback from Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, Hardman, and McKinnon. Bieniemy had his my way or the highway moment calling plays in the second half. At the end of regulation, with the Chiefs needing a touchdown to win, Bieniemy called at least 2 plays that the team hadn't practiced in 3 months. It led to confusion across the board, from line blocking assignments to routes to Mahomes looking shaken. Rewatch that series. Mahomes didn't throw the game. Bieniemy literally created mass confusion in the most pivotal moment of the game. Since the AFC Championship, super agent Leigh Steinberg and Bob Lamonte, Reid's agents, have done a lot of talking about Bieniemy and Mahomes. This keeps the line of communication between Mahomes and Reid clear and consistent. But at the same time, players are speaking up, trying to handle this situation via the back of the clubhouse. Kelsey agreed to be the face of the Chiefs during the Super Bowl, but he had as many as 6 issues with Bieniemy during the fall. There's an outside possibility that Bieniemy could resign with the Chiefs for 1 year. He could seek other opportunities or take a year off. Bieniemy has an image problem to work on due to prospective owners noticing his temperament, the way he ignores his players, and his past criminal issues. The latter is a big issue in the eyes of many. It is clearly in the best interest of both parties to go their separate ways at this point. For Bieniemy to return It means issues with Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, Hardman, and others would have to be addressed to a satisfactory level. Reid could turn to an old friend in Matt Nagy who will actually check Andy and collaborate with the offense, coaching staff, and listen to his players. People want to lay blame on the players, but that isn't always what should happen. As one of our good friends said to us today, you can have all the soldiers in the world, but if you don't know how to lead them, you're screwed. Leadership reflects attitude, and the 2021 Chiefs were clearly a victim of the enemy's poor attitude. Well, shout out to C-Pen for the article and everything. To me, this is just an article to basically alleviate blame from Mahomes and Andy Reid. I mean, the BS that they're trying to make it seem like Bieniemy doesn't know what he's doing. He's temperamental. They always use black people as temperamental. Like the situation I went through last night when I got into it with these guys at the job, telling them off and walking away from them. You see, this is the way they picture black people. Black men are always seen as hot, temperamental, too aggressive. When you're aggressive, they take that as aggressive instead of taking that as passion. A lot of black women do this too, because a lot of what the white man does is put seeds in their head. Patrick Mahomes cannot throw from the pocket. The point blank period. And Bieniemy knows it. Andy Reid knows it. Kafka knows it. They all know it. And Bieniemy is being assertive because nobody wants to check Patrick Mahomes' arrogance and ego. And see, this is the problem with the NFL. They want to make Bieniemy look bad because the owners don't like him. They don't like him because he's black. It has nothing to do with his damn coaching. Like this article, the guy's saying, well, it has nothing to do with racism. It's about oh, shut the hell up. You don't know what you're talking about. You guys, Andy Reid had this problem in Philadelphia. So this isn't a Bieniemy problem. You guys are making it about Bieniemy because you want to lay blame to somebody instead of laying blame to that mulatto ass punk and that Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. That's your problem. And then players, they like, man, we don't like how Bieniemy talk to you. Why? Because you're sensitive and soft. Kelsey's soft. Tyreek's soft. Cole is soft. You can't take when a coach is getting in your butt to let you know what you're doing wrong. This is the problem with the Chiefs. And this was a problem in Philadelphia. Andy Reid does not run the ball enough. He doesn't. He doesn't. So stop trying to paint the picture that Eric Bieniemy's the angry black man or, oh, it's his way or the highway. Well, there's plenty of white coaches that have done that. Bill Parcells, Sean Payton's the same way. But why is it they get praised for saying it's my way or the highway, but when a black guy tries to do it, a black man does it, it's a problem. Oh, they went with Dennis Allen because he has a plan. He has a plan, right? Okay. Dennis Allen has a plan. Okay. He has a plan, right? Let me look up something for you. Dennis Allen has a plan, right? Here's Dennis Allen's record as a head coach. He was in Oakland for 16 seasons. 2012, he went 4-12. Second season, he went 4-12. Then 2014, he was fired after week 4. But he has a plan all of a sudden. So basically, he knows how to coach great now. Look, they don't like Eric Bieniemy is because Eric Bieniemy is sort of like in the same situation Von Leftwich in. They want total control over their team. They want control and they want to be able to have the final say of their personnel. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's okay for Sean Payton to demand it. It's okay for Sean McVay. Sean McVay does the same thing. Is his way or the highway? So why is it all of a sudden the enemy problem? This is the problem with the cheese. Nobody has checked Patrick Mahomes. He's had too much success early. And there's nothing to say he's not great. Patrick Mahomes has very good things that he does well, and then he has a lot of bad things, which it showed in the Bengals game. Andy Reid has had this problem everywhere he's gone. He doesn't run the damn ball. You could get rid of Bieniemy, but you're still gonna have the same problem. Mahomes is gonna have a problem throwing from the pocket. Travis Kelsey, if you get physical with him, he shells up. Tyreek Hill, he can't run routes. He only has one route, that is just to use his speed to get open. But when he loses that athleticism, what's gonna happen? So to me, this article was just blame Eric Bieniemy, and basically nobody's interviewing Bieniemy is because he's a black man. He's a strong black man. He's not weak. He's not soft, and people have a problem with the strong black man. It's in their head. It's in their DNA that if a black man, shows any passion, that's seen as temperamental and aggressive, and they're like, oh, he doesn't listen to his players. Well, old school white coaches didn't listen to their players. Why? They're the players. But all of a sudden, when things go bad, oh, it's the black guy's fault. But when things go well, look at what Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are doing. They're doing a great job. Even Mike Kafka, he's good. They like him. They like Mike Kafka because he's the new white boy that they're trying to groom. They're trying to make him into the new Sean McVay. That's all. And Matt Nagy, he did such a great job, right, as an offensive coordinator. What has Matt Nagy done in the NFL? Huh? Let's see. What did he do? He's 34-31, right? 0-2 in the playoffs. That's Matt Nagy's record. Right? Brad Childress was 39-35. Postseason 1-2. His career is 40-37. Which is to me mediocrity. So to me, this is just escape. They're just trying to scapegoat Eric Bieniemy. They they don't like him because he's absurd. He's assertive, and he's very tough. He's hard nosed. He's old school, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is these players are too pacified now. They're soft, and in the media they're looking to blame it because the NFL is trying to cover their butt. They're trying to cover their butt, but the owners, they're like, look, man, we're racist. We've been racist and it's been working for us. We're still going to be racist. And most of the fans, they're racist. They don't want to see a black head coach. They don't want to see a black quarterback because if they did, they would complain about it. They don't want to see black owners. All they care about is their team. Are they winning or aren't they winning? Owners can have a job for 30 some years stinking up the joint, but a black coach can't even get an opportunity. And a black owner can't even get interviewed. Now we got this one black owner. Why? Because he got a white wife. If you ain't got a white wife and you black, it's trouble. Eric Bieniemy has a white wife. But see, he's not docile. See, they want black men to be docile. That was the problem with Flores. He's not docile. He's a man. So to me, this article just was a puff piece to paint Andy Reid as the victim of dealing with Eric Bieniemy's temper, making Patrick Mahomes look like the sweet, innocent guy, which again he has no accountability as always. Travis Kelsey has a problem because he's soft, and when you talk to him and tell him about himself, he shells up like a chick. Who else? Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is just he can't run routes. Athletic and everything, but that only gets you so far. And Eric Bieniemy is the type he wants to run the ball, which he's correct. Run the ball with Hilaire more. but they want to throw all the time because this is Andy Reid's system. Kafka is the new up and coming white face that they're trying to bring into the new century. They're trying to get all the young coaches white so they can continue to bring that into the new century. Like I said, man, either we make our own league or we get some black owners in and fight for it. But other than that, there's not going to be any changes. It's not. It's not going to be any changes. So, thank you for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, share this, hit the notification bell to select all to receive upcoming notifications. And if you love what you hear, you can donate to the page by Cash Apping me at the word welcome, the number 2, and then HDIITV. Or you can go to the description box, hit the link, and that'll take you to my Cash App directly. You could donate $1, donate $1 million, whatever you're willing to give, we accept. Also, the super chat work. You guys can do that during the premiere, during the live. So, thank you guys for listening, and we out. Deezy.